Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Welcome, geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to a brand new edition of Geek to Me Radio. Today we're joined by Neil Kleid and John Broglia talking about Savor, a graphic novel that's out from Dark Horse. We'll then talk with Derrex Brady and Marc Etienne about their movie Questions. All that and more, stand by. We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all. And for those of you listening for the first time, welcome. I'm your host, James Enstall of Geek to Me Radio. For those longtime listeners, thank you for continuing to listen and for your constant support. We've got a great show, 4 guests on. Let's jump right in. Right now we're talking with writer Neil Kleid and artist John Broglia about a graphic novel called Savor, coming out through Dark Horse. Actually, it's out in stores right now. You can get it through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever you got your comic books from. Gentlemen, thanks for your time today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. So we'll start with Neil. The idea for this, I read, it came about from you kind of wanting to make something for your kids, more or less. And I read the description and looked over the pictures, and in my mind, it looks a little bit like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World meets Ratatouille, which I love both of those. So this is brilliant. Talk a little bit about the concept.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, those are 2 influences that I have yet to hear, which except that Ratatouille, actually, we do have like a 1-panel homage in the book. The book basically, for the last, I've been in comics for a while now, and all the books that I've done have really been adult themes, or they've been really themes that are for adult audiences. I did a crime book, I did a sort of a slice of life contemporary story, I've done superhero, I've done fantasy, everything. But I've never really written for kids per se. And, as I became a father myself, and as my kids started to really get into graphic novels, there's always been this kind of urge to want to write something that my kids are going to enjoy. And my daughter specifically really loves graphic novels. She's been picking up all the Raymond Telgemeier books. She's been reading Ben Hatke and Kayla Miller and a ton of different creators. And I always wanted to give her like a new adventure, right? I tried her on Jeff Smith and this book and that book, but I've never been able to say, oh, here, read my book. And that's really where this came from, the idea of wanting to give her an adventure story that she would enjoy that I wrote. So, and that's really started to inform a lot of the writing that I'm doing now. I've got a couple of other books that I'm really working on that are geared towards young adults / middle grade. Not middle age, middle grade. And that's really kind of where a lot of my writing is moving towards. The influences are really, really far and reaching on this one. We love Disney movies. So Moana, we had just sort of seen Moana, and my daughter loves Mulan. And, any hero who's kind of got her own agency, Frozen, any hero or they use princess, obviously, who's really can kind of create her own story. And it's not all about like, which prince am I going to, run off with, but it's more about like who I am as a person and who I want to be in the world. Those are stories that we really gravitate towards. But it also has to do with my own influences. Like, you mentioned Scott Pilgrim, and there is a heavy video game influence in this book. The book Savor, for those who don't know, it's about an adventuring chef who returns home to her island home after 6 years away. And her island home is this like utopia for chefs. It's the place where you go to really learn how to cook or enjoy food by people who love to cook. And she is part of a group of people who really defend the island, and both they're warrior chefs where they cook and they fight. And so she goes away for 6 years to learn how to cook and fight by other people, kind of like Batman does, goes around the world and really learns from other people to be the best chef, the best cook that she can be. And when she comes back, finds that a band of pirate chefs have taken over the island, and she now has to face the 5 deadliest restaurants on the island to collect pieces of a legendary sword that she has to put together to fight the pirates and get them off the island. So there's a lot of video game influence there. Legend of Zelda was the one that I've been kind of pushing.
Yeah.
You said Ratatouille and Scott Pilgrim, and mine has always been Legend of Zelda meets Top Chef. That's kind of what we've been pitching it as, and it really is a lot of that. And we mentioned like boss battles in the book, and there's definitely this sense of like going from level to level to really achieve your ultimate goal. But there's a lot of influences in there. It's a coming of age story. It's about learning to be a hero. It's about friendship, and yes, it's about food. I'm an amateur chef, so I like to cook. I like to read recipes, and I like to read cookbooks, and a lot of that kind of got poured into this wonderful book. And to John's discomfort, there's a lot of food puns.
John, when you were brought on as the artist, did you two collaborate previously? Was this a partnership that the two of you brought about? Were you assigned to the project via Dark Horse? How did you get involved with Savor?
We had never worked together before, Neil and I, but we had both done a separate short stories for the Where We Live anthology through Image Comics. It was an anthology book that was raising money to benefit the victims of the Las Vegas shooting. And a mutual friend of ours, Michael Avon Oming, he had basically contacted both of us and said, hey, you guys need to meet and work together. So as it worked out, through that book, we were doing a tour signing, and we were at a Barnes & Noble in Manhattan. And we ended up sitting next to each other. We ended up chatting, and we hit it off. And, as soon as we got back to our respective homes, Neil sent me a list of, different concepts that he was working on, different, little short blurbs of different books that he had in the works. And he just said, choose one, choose whatever you're most interested in working with. And Savor just totally popped out at me. And really, honestly, for the same reasons that Neil wrote it to begin with. Our daughters are the same age. And as creators, I've only worked on books, just like Neil said, I've only worked on books that are adult themed as well, or have adult, tropes in them and stuff. So having a daughter turn around and say, hey, Dad, wow, you drew this book. That's so cool. And then I can't let her read it. It's always kind of like a knife to the heart.
Right.
That would always be the next question. Dad, can I read this book? Can I read this? No. So I really wanted to work on something that she could read with characters in it that she could relate to and look up to. And when Neil sent me Savor, I was like, oh, this is it. I was like, this is great. So we started the book from there.
And I love the art that I saw. It's very evocative of the modern styles of animation and Disney stuff. A little bit reminiscent to me of Star versus the Forces of Evil in the art, which I love that show. Where did the collaboration did he just kind of let you run? Was it a back and forth? Like, here's what I did, and he suggested changes. I guess let's start with there. How long did it take from conception to final product?
I don't know. I can't remember how long it took until we kind of got the look of it. But there is always back and forth. Everything's a collaborative effort. So
I think the heartbreak with any sorry, John, I don't mean to step on you. I think the heartbreak with any book or comic series when you're putting it together is, you start putting together the pitch, right? You start putting together here's what the document's going to be, here's what the story's going to be, and then we need some sort of samples to just really sell the publisher. And so, John, you had done these really loose character studies for some of the key characters early on. You did 4 or 5 of them of Savor and Habanero the villain, and a few more. And it was really kind of to get the feel of it. based on the document I put together. And we were both, I think, kind of over the moon. We were like, this is great. This is fantastic. But the problem is that you're really sitting on that stuff for so long, because then there's the pitch process, which takes a while, right? We went through a couple of different
months went by until we knew we can move forward with it. We knew it was going to be picked up.
Right. I mean, you hadn't done any work other than those like 5 or 6 character sketches for maybe like 6 or 7 months. And so early on, that's all we had. And I think you had done one promo shot, and we were using that as kind of like the cover for our pitch. And I had done like the logo. But really early on, it wasn't super defined. You really kind of got to do that once we were up and running with the development, once Dark Horse was on board, and once we had Frank aboard as the colorist.
Yes. And then at that point, it's like crunch time. At that point, I was basically, and even once we started the book, we were really kind of designing each location, each restaurant, kind of as we were going. I would just kind of draw something and send it to Neil, and Neil would be like, all right, make sure that this, and this is in it. And it's like we said, it's always a collaborative effort. There's a lot of feedback back and forth. Anybody who tells you that it's not, either they're not working well together or they're lying. Or they're lying.
Well, and the one thing that John is not telling you is that in some cases I am a tyrant. One of the things that I've actually been doing over the last couple of years with all of my projects, that have kind of like this expansive world, is creating like a world Bible, right? So I spend a little time putting together maybe like a 30, 40-page document that really breaks down characters, locations, history, really not just like the synopsis, not just what happens in the story, but like what happens to form the story. And it's almost kind of like, if you play Dungeons and Dragons, it's kind of like one of those monster manuals, right? But it's more for, all the characters in the book, all the locations in the book, just everything that kind of, John is going to have to design. I wanted to give him a little bit of history on it, right? Like, when you're going to go design, this restaurant, here's what they serve at the restaurant, right? So I've been doing that a lot lately, and it really kind of helps at least me define in my head what, how the story is going to progress throughout all these locations with all these characters. So John I think you had that a little bit as a blueprint to go, but yes, for the most part, I think I was fairly hands off with a lot of, your design.
Oh, you definitely let me run creatively, but all of that information that you gave me, that's extremely helpful to the artist as well. Because as much information as you can give, that's going to help me paint that picture not only better, but faster. If you give me a little bit of information, there might end up being a heck of a lot more back and forth. Like, if I show you something, now you might want to change it more often and then add in the things that possibly you could have told me the first time around. So it ends up prolonging everything. But Neil had so much information to start with, which it moves things along so much better.
And Savor, again, the all-ages 144-page graphic novel from Dark Horse. We'll put a link in the show notes for those of you. But as we always say, please, please, please support your local comic book stores. If they don't have it, ask your local comic book store to get it, and I'm sure they'll be able to do that for you. With a lot of these creator-owned people are going on Kickstarter and launching things. You guys, this is through Dark Horse. Did you decide to pitch it to them rather than do the Kickstarter thing for any particular reason? We'll pause there, take our first break, come back and continue our talk with Neil Kleid and John Broglia. Stand by.
This is Matt King, the voice of Illidan Demon Hunter, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
And we're back. Geek to Me Radio, brought to you by Discover St. Charles. That's discoverstcharles.com, the premier sponsor. Been with us since the beginning. A great place to visit. If you're from out of town, you should come see it. COVID lockdowns are starting to open back up. People are getting vaccinated. If you're kind of stir crazy and want to get out, St. Charles has a lot of great places to get out to. Go to the website, plan your trip now, discoverstcharles.com. If you're in the greater St. Louis area, you may already know, but maybe it's one of those things you need to go back and revisit because there's always something new to see and do in St. Charles. Just celebrated their 250th anniversary last year, and they've got another 250 in them at least. Check out the website, as we always recommend that you do. DiscoverStCharles.com. Plan your trip. See what there is to do. That way you've got a game plan going in. But if you don't want to do that, throw caution to the wind. Just go out and visit. Walk along Main Street. Play in Frontier Park. Eat at someplace new. St. Charles has something for everyone. Once again, the website, DiscoverStCharles.com. That's DiscoverStCharles.com for an historically good time. Before we took that last break, we were talking with Neil Kleid and John Broglia about Savor, their graphic novel, and I asked them about going to Dark Horse with something like this versus doing a Kickstarter or something like that.
Neil, were we back and forth about? No, we weren't back and forth really about the Kickstarter thing with this.
No, so we talked about Kickstarter, about some other projects. You've done a Kickstarter before, John.
Yeah, I've done it. I've been part of a handful of them. Prominently in one or two, and just a part of a few others. And I love Kickstarter. I love that platform. But there's a lot of work that goes into that platform.
Sure.
That's not, it's a whole nother job just to, just to run the Kickstarter, fulfill the Kickstarter. It's like you're adding a whole other job onto it.
Yeah.
We're comic book guys. We want to see our stuff on the shelves as well. We want to see things in stores, and we want to, so we want to pitch to publishers, and we're both Dark Horse fans. And I personally never had a Dark Horse book out before. So I really, I was excited to have a book out with that Dark Horse label on it, being a fan for so many decades.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the same. I've been trying to work with Dark Horse. I actually did a short, story with Dark Horse. They did, the creepy, the creepy comics a while back. I think they're still running them, and I did a short story for that. But I've never really worked on like a Dark Horse title, and I've always wanted to because I love Hellboy, I love Black Hammer and Umbrella Academy, a bunch of the Dark Horse titles, and this was was one of those weird kind of moments of fortuity where I actually didn't really know anyone there anymore. All the editors I had worked with had left for various reasons, and I happened to be at a New York Comic Con a couple of years back, and I was just walking past the Dark Horse booth, and I saw a buddy of mine, Rafer Roberts, who did a book with them called, I think, Modern Fantasy, and he happened to be signing at the time, and I hadn't seen him in years, so I just went over to say hello, and he introduced me to his editor, who, is now our editor, Brett Israel. And Brett told me, hey, we're looking for some all ages comics. And I said, I have something that's, quite a little middle grade, a little young adult. I'd love to send it to you. And it just kind of all worked out really well. And thank God, Brett really liked it, and we moved forward. In terms of a Kickstarter, we've talked about other projects on Kickstarter. I did a self-published book when I first got into the business. I won a Xeric grant. The Xeric grant's not really around anymore, but that was set up by, I think, Peter Laird, who is half of the Ninja Turtles. He did this self-publishing grant for years, and so I won one back in 2003, which meant that they gave me money to self-publish and distribute my own book. And if you go upstairs into my attic, I have 10 cases of them still sitting up there, which, my wife would not have been thrilled if John and I went out and did a Kickstarter and I ended up with 10 more. So I'm just like he says, I'm a comics guy. I write comics. I letter comics. I help create the comics. I don't have it in me to really distribute them so much. That's just that administration end of it is something that I'm not really geared towards, I guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you need the space for it too. Physical space. People forget about that part. When all of those rewards in the book start coming shipped, you need a lot of people, 90%, 95% of the people I know do it right out of their homes.
Yeah.
And when that pallet of boxes comes and that pallet of books come, it consumes your entire house unless you have something set up, and I know for one, my wife would probably quickly divorce me if my entire house was filled top to bottom with, boxes and shipping and rewards and posters. And
Yep.
So it's something you really have to delve completely into and really think about.
And you talk about consuming. It's not just a physical consumption. It's an emotional consumption, right? Because you're sitting there literally every day trying to get more backers, and if you don't, it weighs on you.
Oh, sure.
I know people who have done multiple Kickstarters that have not been funded, and it's not a great feeling when you're like tap all your friends and family multiple times and have to do all the advertising and legwork yourself, and then you don't fund. It takes a lot out of you, and you kind of get to that point where you're like, I don't want to do another comic book as long as I live, That's not a great feeling. And yeah, there's a lot of that emotional baggage, even with a comic like ours, that, a book like ours that's published through a traditional publisher. If nobody buys it and, John and I can't do more, like that weighs on you too, right? But at least to John's point, you're not stuck with an attic full of posters.
This is true. And last question, is there a sequel in the works? Is there a Savor 2 or a spinoff from one of the characters in the in this universe now? Any plans that you can talk about?
There are plans for more. The nice thing about the book is that it's definitely left open for a sequel. And John and I actually have, I've mentioned to him ideas for 2 more books. It really kind of is up to Dark Horse. It's up to, do people like the book enough? Are they talking about the book enough? Are they buying the book, right? If there's no demand for it, Dark Horse isn't going to do it. So it really kind of comes down to, one of the things that we really pushed for early on was, please pre-order the book. Please make the numbers large enough so that Dark Horse sees that people are interested, people are excited about it. Even after, now the book's been out for over a month. And since, the end of January is now available digitally and through bookstores, if the numbers just aren't there, if the demand isn't there, there's not going to be any more. That's just how comics work, right?
Yeah.
If people aren't buying Teen Titans at a certain point, Teen Titans ain't going to be published anymore. That's kind of what it is, right? And even more so for a small one-off graphic novel like ours that doesn't have, Batman tied to it or any, large-scale licensed characters, it's much harder to get those numbers up to the point where somebody will say, like, oh, that was moderately successful enough that we're going to do a second one, right?
Yeah.
And John, anything to add to that, John? Or
no, he's right. He's 100% right. Your best bet always is you put out, you write for yourself, you draw for yourself, you make the story you want to hear and you want to read, and you put it out and you hope it does well. But for the indie guys and the creator-owned guys and like he said, the smaller books that don't have the licensed character attached to it, you need those books to really excel. You need those books to really, really do well, and be noticed. And for everybody listening and for future, creators and everybody else, this is where, if you go on social media and you see creators begging and begging and begging for pre-orders, please pre-order. This is where those things come in handy, and they're extremely important. Those pre-orders help in a tremendous way. And after the book is out, reviews on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, all those reviews. So the pre-orders and reviews are so important, because the companies see that, the publishing companies see those things. And when they see it, they see those sales, they see those great reviews. It entices them, even if the book maybe is not doing phenomenal, it still entices them. Maybe we'll give it a second shot.
And so, obviously, for those of you listening, it's too late to pre-order it anymore, but you can still get it. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookstores. You can get it online. You can get it in digital, as they said. And, of course, if you have read Savor, leave a review. Leave a 5-star review. Go to these the places like Amazon and leave a 5-star review, because that's going to help Neil and John get the sequel. And if you liked it, hopefully you'll want the sequel. So leave those reviews, buy the book, and you can get it right there. Where can people keep up with you guys online to see your new projects? Go ahead and start with Neil.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. That's kind of the main place that I'll post about comics and post about, art teases and what have you. I'm working on something now that I'll be teasing, over the next year as we kind of get closer to fruition on it. And hopefully, as John and I work on other projects together, we'll be able to tease some artwork and some fun things about that as well.
And John, online social handles, websites, anything?
Yes, I'm mostly on Instagram. I post most of my art on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well. Just type my name in. There's only one of me, so I'm easy to find. And my next book, which is kind of funny that we were doing all that Kickstarter talk, my next book is out through Kickstarter, so pray for me on that. And it'll be out later in the year. It's called Zombie Sama 2, which I've already done the first one on Kickstarter. It was very successful with Billy Tucci and Crusade, Fine Arts Limited. So the second one will be out on Kickstarter later in the year. But if you follow me on social media, I'll be posting about it as we get closer.
Perfect. Nice. And again, it's Savor. It's a 144-page, all-ages graphic novel from Dark Horse. It's out now. We'll put a link in the show notes. Neil, Kleid, John Broglia, thanks so much for your time today. It's been a blast talking to you. Best of luck.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
My thanks again to Neil, Kleid, and John Broglia. We're going to take our next break, come back, and chat with Derrex Brady and Marc Etienne about their movie Questions. Stand by.
Hi, this is Leslie Ann Brunt. I play Mazikeen on Lucifer, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
Welcome back to Geek to Me Radio. If you are at a place where you want to get out and see a movie, may I recommend Marcus Theaters and Movie Tavern. Marcus Theaters, the official movie sponsor of Geek to Me Radio. You heard me talk about them and how safe it is. Instagram, if you go to @Geek to Me Radio on Instagram, we just put a reel up about how safe it is to go see a movie. I just went and saw Chaos Walking at the St. Charles Marcus Theater location. Great fun, huge barrel of popcorn, big old glass of Diet Dr. Pepper, kicked back, hit the little heated seat button. It was bliss. If you are missing movies, go to the website, marcustheaters.com. You can find a Marcus Theaters or a Movie Tavern location close to you. Buy your tickets right there online, or go to the app on your smartphone or smart device. Download the Marcus Theaters app. You can buy your tickets, have your concessions ordered ahead of time, ready for you when you arrive, to make it a more contactless experience. It's safe to go back to the movies. I know everyone has to do something at their own comfort level, so maybe you're not ready, but if you are kind of wondering if it's safe, it is safe. They're very, very, very careful with their cleaning procedures, and they do it right. Once again, marcustheaters.com. Check out the website to see what movies are playing, find the location closest to you, and go have a good time at the movies. Speaking of movies, we're joined now by Derrex Brady and Marc Etienne talking about their new movie, Questions. Right now we're talking with Derrex Brady and Marc Etienne about their film Questions, which is out now. You can catch it, and we're going to talk to them about that and a few other things too. Gentlemen, thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much for having us.
So we'll start with Derrex. This is, if I'm not mistaken, you've got the Skyscape Pictures, which you founded with M.D. Walton, and you're also, in addition to acting, you're one of the producers on the film as well. Did I get that right?
You did. You did get that right.
So talk a little bit about wearing a producer hat and an actor hat. A lot of people find that can be challenging. Some people like just the ease of, I'm going in, I'm doing my part, I'm acting. Other people like having the other hats to wear while they're doing a project. Talk a little bit about where you find that balance personally.
It's funny you say that, because when I was just focused on acting, I started getting feels out as I was doing other jobs. And I remember having a conversation with James Spader, The Blacklist. It was when we were doing Boston Legal. And I remember asking him, like, on your off season, do you do any producing or writing? And he was like, nah. And I thought, wow, well, he could do that. But I found early on in my career that I wanted to express in multiple ways. And so I was just looking for the right avenue, the right opportunity. And then I did a project with Avery, just as an actor, that he was writing and directing and producing with a mutual friend. And he and Mark were doing this film Questions, and Avery was like, very nonchalant, like, hey, listen, I think I got a role for you. You should check it out. And so I read it. I loved the character, and I wanted to come in. And then Mark and I also had a conversation about me coming on as a producer. And it just felt like, you know what, this is a great opportunity where I can be in front and behind the camera. And I felt like I was along my career enough to where I could handle both. And so I took a try at it.
Very cool. And Mark, you're a producer on this. You've done writing, directing, producing. What draws you to a project, Mark? Like a project like Questions in particular, but what draws you to a project that you find yourself wanting to produce?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's people always say it's a script, right? And that can be a bit of a cliche, but for me, it has to be the fact that once I read it, I can immediately not only see what's happening on screen, but also how we're going to make it. Right. So, having sort of straddling the world of business and entertainment, and sometimes mixing both, I'm always in we're building a product or building a business mode. And, because a film or a TV show is a product, right? Obviously, it has an intended purpose, an audience. It's an artistic product, but I have to be able to read the script and obviously connect to the script, see it's well written, see the characters on screen, but also on the other side of my brain, see how we're going to make this happen. What are the interactions that we need to get the ball rolling in terms of financing, how we're going to market it. So for literally end to end, and this one kind of fit all, essentially it dotted all the I's. And of course, the fact that, my good friend Avery had written it was, icing on the cake. So, yeah, so it definitely has to be the script plus how we're going to get this made. Because the script can be amazing, but then if you don't find a way you can get it made, then you got to either find partners or pass on it. In this case, thankfully, that was not the case.
And Mark, you went to NYU, double major in econ and poli-sci, so of course you went into the movie business. Talk a little bit about where that kind of, not really U-turn, because obviously you can probably use the econ degree when you're marketing and things like that, but talk a little bit about how you kind of got into film.
Yeah. Okay, that's just showing off right there. You just let off that. That was just showing off. But go ahead, Mark.
Man, it's okay, man. It's okay. It's okay. Did I mention I have a PhD in being awesome? I should have mentioned that as well. It's on my LinkedIn.
We'll definitely get into that then for sure.
That's a good dad joke right there. But so I got into film actually by accident. So when I went to NYU to study econ and poli-sci, it just happened to be that most of my friends in the dorm were film students. So I immediately befriended them because obviously they're people that you live with, and we got along very well. But at the time, I was also I'd always had an artistic side, so I'd always painted and drawn. And when I moved to New York, I started doing a lot of photography, and I became actually a pretty prolific photographer, and was doing it as a side gig as well. And so my buddies was telling me like, "Hey, man, listen, we're all learning how to do film here. But one thing that's not cool is that as we're all learning, it's not cool that the cameraman also is learning. So everything's out of focus. So it's poorly lit. Like, it's okay if we're learning on the sound and the acting and directing, but we need the camera to be sharp. So I said, would you mind coming on to, on some of those shoots and helping us to just give some direction? And I said, yeah, I'll do it on the weekend here and there between studies. And then on one weekend I joined them, and I went from, within 2 hours, I went from kind of giving pointers on how to hold the camera, how to focus it, to just shooting the thing myself. so essentially, I started shooting a lot of my friends' short films. So really kind of looking at the director photography realm. But then the more I got involved with them, the more I got a liking to writing. And so I started writing on my own, and we started exchanging scripts and then seeing how they directed. So really sort of wearing all sorts of hats. And then so after college, I essentially had also an official degree in film school and film studies, thanks to my collaboration on dozens of student films with all my friends and fellow students. So after I left college, I went back to Haiti, where I'm from, to help with the family business. And then after that, I sort of chartered a way to get back to the U.S. because I really had that filmmaking bug. And some friends of mine were actually moving from New York to L.A. I thought, well, this is my chance, because I've been up and down the East Coast of the U.S., but never to the West Coast. So I figured, this is the time to try it. This is my early 20s. I'll go out west and see how that shakes out. And then came out here with the dream of obviously filmmaking. But I had this very specific goal in mind, is that while I came out here, I'm not trying to knock being a waiter or these kind of jobs. I said to myself, while I'm trying to make it in film, I'm also going to try another career, just to make sure that if one doesn't work out, I've got something else to fall back on. So my plan B wasn't like, I'm going to keep doing sort of like entry-level jobs forever. My plan B was like, I want to build a career that's in parallel. And I thought at some point, even if one career doesn't work out, I can use one to inform the other. And it turns out that's exactly what happened. I got involved in the tech business and some startups, and that that tech and sort of building a business and that focus on early enterprises really helps shape how I produce. So it turns out sometimes people tell you, oh, you're going to kill your dream by going after business. It's not true. You can bring everything you learn from parenthood, from being a child yourself, from your own parents, from your friendships, love, sorrows. You can bring all that into filmmaking, and it just makes you a better filmmaker. There's a reason why some of the best writers out there are older, because they've lived life and they can be seen on the page.
Yeah, definitely. And Derrex, with you having the Skyscope Pictures, a lot of people I've talked to lately who are making some of the best art out there in the business have their own production company because they are not seeing from the bigger studios the types of movies they want to see, the types of roles that they want to take on. Was there a bit of that when you decided to start Skyscope, or was it completely something else?
No, I mean, that was actually really it. I mean, as an actor, I had somewhat of a steadily, climb as, doing theatrical as well as commercial, but I found myself wanting to be part of telling different stories. I wanted to tell a variety. And my producing partner, MD Walton, who is also an actor, we would see each other on the, in the circuit for auditions. And we just always would champion each other. Never had envy or jealousy. He was a good guy. He saw me as a good guy. And we just really, thought, wow, we have something in common. We both want to tell some stories. So let's sit down. And we sat down and we found out that, you know what, we really want to be part of telling diverse stories that kind of can highlight themes that aren't always talked about, but really, while entertaining, still give perspectives that could give dialogue for like different perspectives. And so that's why we created Skyscope Pictures. And it's our banner that we have a couple projects under now. We're kind of moving forward. And actually, Questions was one of the first features that I really came on as a producer. And then we later did a short and won some nominations, awards. And we were like, we really can do this. So we just continued to work together and built this company to start telling diverse stories to marginalized communities that don't always have a voice. And that's exciting. I never thought that producing, like acting is my first love. I always see myself expressing that way. But I never thought that I would really fall in love with producing as another expression. And I have.
And we're talking about Questions, which you can catch on Amazon. I believe it's also on YouTube TV, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, you could find it. You could find it on Amazon Prime. You could find it on Apple TV. You can find it on you can find it on Google Play, Yahoo, not Yahoo, YouTube, YouTube, and then also is it Gumroad?
Yeah, Gumroad, you got it.
Yeah.
And this is a comedy about a regular guy who in 3 years hasn't figured out what makes his girlfriend tick so he can save the relationship. Now he has 1 week to figure out what makes all women tick so he can save it himself. It's the comedy movies like this. Comedy, everyone likes to laugh, especially with the year we've had in 2020. This was probably a good time to release comedy movies. Talk a little bit about the creation of the movie, from how it kind of changed from the genesis of, okay, we've got this script, to the final product. And either one of you can take that. We'll take our next break, come back, and get that answer from these gentlemen right after this. Please stand by.
Hi, this is Kimberly Brooks, the voice of Princess Allura. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
Welcome back to Geek to Me Radio. I'm your host, James Enstall, talking with Derrex Brady and Marc Etienne about their movie Questions. Before we took that last break, I asked them how the film had changed from concept to final production.
Yeah, I can start off, and then Derrex, I'll let you finish it off. So this is truly a labor of love journey, and it's and that's what I always tell Avery, the writer and director, and of acting in the film as well, that he's been involved in a marathon, and some people have come along, us obviously, to come along and help them out, and then through that journey. But really, he's been doing this journey for the longest. So he started writing the script in the 90s.
Wow.
So he wrote the script. So Avery is an actor, accomplished actor, and he was booking some roles in New York, and doing, it was coming up, doing well. And so he wasn't really happy about the type of romantic comedy movies, or just actually any movies featuring black actors that he was seeing back then. The diversity wasn't really there. So, I mean, in a case in point, most of the roles he was playing at the time, he was doing a great job, but he was playing criminals. So that kind of rubbed him the wrong way. So he figured, hey, how do we change this? So he started writing a script, and he's a big fan of Woody Allen and the kind of comedic tension that could be in his movie. So we started thinking like, well, we could have a movie like that features black actors. So he started writing a script. And he got traction on it after writing it. He got some folks interested. He was able to get a studio to look at it. But as those conversations go, sometimes folks say, yeah, we're gonna make this movie, and then I think it ended up going in turnaround. So one of those cases where it gets really close, but then that doesn't happen, and so he kind of put it away for a little while. And then when he moved out here to California, he's met up with some folks, and then I moved to California. We reconnected. And, at the time I had just finished getting some financing ready for a movie out of Taiwan. That's why I got my feature film producing show. Like, the birth was, helping some old friends with raising financing for their film they're doing out of Taiwan. So I said, I've just done that, and I'm still helping them with budget and that stuff. So maybe I can apply those skills to anything you guys got going on. And David said, yeah, I've got the script and questions I wrote back in college. And I told him, I remember you talked about this a while back, but I hadn't read it. So I remember reading it. I read it on an airplane with my wife and proceeded to annoy everyone, including her on the airplane, because I read it twice and I laughed the entire time. And so people were trying to sleep. I didn't care. I had my earphones on, just laughing my ass off. And then we landed. And then I immediately got off the phone call. Mark's like, we have to go to luggage. I'm like, no, I got to call Avery. So she's looking for luggage. I'm calling Avery. I'm saying, dude, we got to get this made. I got to find a way to get this financed. This is hilarious. And then from there, we started building the team. And then Derrex, I'll let you pick it up from there.
Yeah, I mean, when I read the script, I was just drawn to it. There were a couple of things that I just really loved about it. First, I just loved that it was timeless. And I love that it was a language that, regardless of age, gender, whatever, it made sense, and it was so relatable. And the thing that I also loved about it is that Avery did a really great job writing complex characters. Like, usually when you have, not usually, but a lot of times on romantic comedies, it's like, okay, the men are stupid. The women are wondering why the men are stupid. And they're trying to like help them not be stupid. Right. Or right. the women, it's all about the women on, it's their time and what should they collect and how much wealth. And this was not that. It was complex, and the characters were different. I was really, bravo to Avery for writing strong women characters, like, the boss he's trying to get a job with. She's running, Tara, Carmen Serrano played, she's running her own business. And so I just thought, wow, this is really interesting. And then I loved, my character. I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to play this character from a different angle. Now, listen, like, some people will think that my character is like soft and he's all chicks in and his girl can just, walk all over him. But I looked at it from a different angle. And what I saw about Justin that I thought was magical is that he was the kind of guy that knew what he had, and he didn't have to lose it to appreciate her, right? He was actually trying to give his girl her flowers while he was with her. And she was the one that was in the chase, thinking that she kept him in the chase, that he would still love her, but she already had him. So that's how I decided to play him. But I just thought it was a great script. It continued to evolve. One thing I'll say about it is that, and hey, kudos to Avery on this, talking about how the script changed. I gave some notes I read. I probably gave, 15 some notes. But one of the notes, Avery was like, I can't do it. And Mark was in agreement with me, and Avery was like, I can't do it. And he was right. It really was funny. It's the pager, right? Yeah. It's the pager, because who still has a pager? Like, who does that?
Right.
And he was right. It was great to keep it in. It was funny, and it played to who he was in his character, as well as just funny in the movie. But the script did continue to evolve, and I thought Avery did a great job telling the voices from both men and women.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to touch on the pager. by the way, it's always good to have a friendly tension amongst friends, and collaborators, because sometimes you're going to disagree, right? And we had a rule that, listen, if we don't agree on something, then obviously if it's going to be, because it's 3. So if it's 2 versus 1, then obviously the majority wins. But we still have to be cognizant of what the opposition was. We don't want to always be like, well, no, us two are always do. So so this was a case where Derrex and I were trying to get Avery to change his mind on this. And then so he stuck to his guns, and the validation for that moment was when we had our first test screening in Burbank, TAC Theater. So we'd seen the movie at that point probably 12 times through cuts, etc. But this is the first time, showing it with a live audience of just more than two or three people. And so it's nerve-wracking. But that moment of the pager killed.
Huh.
And I could just feel Avery kind of looking for us in the audience, like, I told you, man. But that was a great moment because that moment in the theater validated all the decisions that we had made. Some decisions we made together, some decisions we kind of fought. But the idea is that we all wanted to make the film better. So it was never about like my ego. It's about, no, I think this will work better. But every decision made was validated, including turning down some money. At some point, as we got this movie through the process, we got it to the studios. My favorite part, without naming names, is when people, because we did a sizzle trailer for this. I mean, we went the whole 9 yards, the sizzle trailer, and then my favorite part was sitting in a in a studio office after the execs have seen the sizzle trailer, laughed at it, and then kind of composed themselves, going, well, So after they realized, they kind of gave away the fact that they think it's hilarious, saying, well, we just don't have room for this in our slate. And my thought was like, what slate? The slate that's got 16 horror movies and 5 crime dramas? I mean, you can't fit one comedy in there, that's just the way the business ran. And that's kind of what led us to finally say, you know what, we're done going the studio route. I think that's lived its course. So we're going to go the independent route. But even the independent route, at some point, we got traction again, and we were offered money, but that money came at steep sacrifices to the script that we'd worked so hard to make perfect, at least in our view. So it was also great to be able to turn that money down and then keep raising funds independently, and then have that reaction from the audience, and then win the awards. Then it's like, man, everything we've done, this entire struggle has been worth it because the audience responds to it, and they really see these characters as being themselves.
And obviously, you guys aren't the only people involved. A lot of great cast crew went into making questions. Is there anyone you want to give shout out to or mention?
Sure. Some of the other cast would be great. First, the director-writer, Avery Kidd Waddell, and also the other 2 guys that were the leads, Danny Wooten and Marquise Harris, the phenomenal women that were involved in the film that did amazing. Carmen Serrano played Tara. You have Christina Weber played Diane. There's Jennifer Fernandad, and there's also Yasmin Watkins. And Mark, am I missing? Oh, Kira Roberts.
That's right.
She was amazing. Yep. She played Patty.
Yep.
Yes. Kira Roberts.
And you can't tell a story without a great cast that's committed to it. So I think that's it definitely was a cohesive unit. You guys did a great job with the film. So kudos to everyone, both the 2 of you and the people you mentioned.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And Derrex, you've worked on a lot of great film and TV projects. I think it looked like your very first film may have been The Nutty Professor back in '96, all the way to Simone working with Al Pacino. Nice. But you've got like Popular and Roswell when it was the WB. You've been in great series like The District, JAG, NCIS, Boston Legal you mentioned. What has been the best lesson you've learned? And regardless from what actor or from what project it was on, what is the one thing you feel that you've learned in your career that you've kept with you this whole time? And we're going to take our very last break, come back and wrap up our conversation with Derrex Brady and Marc Etienne. Please stand by.
You burn your point when you will exhale. Say, shoot back, shoot back.
Hi, everybody. This is Maria Canals Barrera. I voice Talk Girl on the Justice League, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
Welcome back for our final segment on Geek to Me Radio. Before we took that break, we were talking with Derrex Brady and Marc Etienne, and we asked Derrex about the best lesson he has learned from his time in Hollywood, and it's a great story. So here's what he had to say.
Wow, that is a great question, and that's that has depth to it. Definitely grateful for, the career I've had and what I'm, blessed to continue to do. I would say, wow. It's hard to put it on one, but I will say there's three actors specifically that I really have taken, some things from, and that's Al Pacino, Blair Underwood, and Mark Harmon from NCIS. And the thing that I loved about Al is that he's so focused on the work. And what it really showed was his respect for the writer and everybody that was on set, like not to waste anybody's time. Like Al Pacino is so focused, so off book, knows all of his stuff, has done all his homework, and understands his relationship to every character that when he's on set, it's just flow. And he just took every single moment seriously with respect of the craft. And I love that. Blair, he just made sure that he was always emotionally available, whether the camera was on him or not. Really a team player. If the camera's on you and it's not on him, he's going to give you 100% regardless. And I just thought, wow, that's something I really want to hold on to. And then with Mark Harmon, he's just an amazing dude. He's just a great guy. And he's just about the craft. He's not caught up in himself. And he wants everybody to shine. He's not insecure or fearful of anybody else getting shine. And I just really love that about those three. And those are the things that I think the most important lessons that I take to me to every set, every, job. Those are some of the three qualities I really try to hold close to me.
It's good to hear that Mark Harmon's a good guy in real life, because as a little kid, even going back to when I was little, I was a TV junkie. And I probably shouldn't have seen it, but I saw him play Ted Bundy in the made-for-TV movie The Deliberate Stranger. Terrified me. Anytime I saw Mark Harmon until about the age of 12, when I realized, okay, that's a man playing a part, terrified me. So it's nice to know that he's good in real life.
Let me just share real quick, and I'm dating myself a little bit. One of my very first jobs was that I think it was one of the last seasons of Chicago Hope that was on CBS. I was playing this phenom pitcher. I got to even fly to Chicago with Mark and shoot stuff out there, the exterior, as well as in LA. And so like maybe 10 years later, I go on the set of NCIS to do a role. I walk up and I'm telling you, I kid you not. He said, "Hey, Derrex." And I said, "Mark, you remember me?"
Huh.
And he goes, yeah. He goes, "Of course, I saw your name on the call sheet. We did Chicago Hope."
Wow.
And I was so blown away.
Wow.
How do you remember that? How do you remember that 10 years later when he's on sets all the time, working all the time, and he remembered me and called me by my first name? And just through the conversation, I was like, wow, I'm so, excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I love NCIS. I was like, man, you guys' hats are awesome. He goes, "You like the hat?" He goes, "I'm going to get you one." And got me a hat that day. I mean, he was just the coolest dude. And I was just like amazed by that. I'd never forget that.
Nice.
Very cool. And if people want to keep up with other projects, you guys, I'm sure it sounds like you're busy with all the hats you're wearing. What other projects do you have coming down the way?
Sure. One of the projects that I have coming up, it's I was in Atlanta. I just got back to LA. I was in Atlanta for 3 months working on a new series called Johnson that'll be on Bounce TV. You can find it on the app if you have a Roku or anything like that, as well as look for any of your local through your cable network. But it's called Johnson. It's going to premiere the summer of 2021. So this summer in August, and would love for you to check it out. It's a great show about 4 lifetime long best friends. We end up younger when we were in school. We end up lining up on the blacktop. We found out in alphabetical order we all had the same last name, Johnson, and we were friends ever since. Just so it's a show about us navigating through the world as best friends. And then I have a couple projects that are coming up through Skyscope. But you can find that if you go to the page. You can see some of the things that we're developing on, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that to you soon.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you back to talk about it once those do come up. And again, if you're listening and you want to check out the movie Questions, we mentioned there's a bunch of places to see it. Apple TV, Amazon. Definitely check that out if you want a great laugh, great story with a lot of great acting in it. Where can people find the two of you online, your production companies, your individual Twitter and Instagram handles? Tell people where they can look for you. Go ahead and start with Derrex.
Sure. So my Twitter handle, my Facebook, as well as my Instagram is at Derrex Brady. That's DerrexBrady. And my handle for Skyscope Pictures is for my producer partner, MD Walton, and I. It's at Skyscope Pics, Pics, on Instagram, and you can find us there.
And Mark?
Yes. So unlike Derrex, I'm not on social media as much as I used to be. But you can still if you go to breadmakerpictures.com, that's my production company that I share with my brother and producing partner. You can also go on newdealreleasing.com. That site's currently being built, but we're going to have it fully loaded soon because obviously we want to make sure that we can have other films be released under the banner. And then, you can also go to questionsfilm.com. And that also has all the information you need to know about the movie and links out to other links as well.
Perfect. Continued success to you both, Derrex Brady and Marc Etienne. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Enjoy the conversation. Thank you so much for making it so easy and smooth.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time. That's going to do it from us. Another show in the books. Make sure you go to the website, geektomeradio.com. Go back and listen to the shows you may not have listened to. And a reminder, we are also live on Sundays on the Big 550 KTRS, KTRS.com/stream. You can listen to it live from anywhere. We have some great guests coming up for the rest of March, and it's completely different from our online shows. We're doing 2 shows a week, so stay with me, help support me, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Geek to Me Radio. Make sure you click on Amazon.com through our affiliate link. We get a small portion of the proceeds from whatever you buy there. And of course, we have a Patreon and a Buy Me a Coffee thing. Go to the website, Geek to Me Radio. It's got all the information and more. My thanks again to Neil Kleid and John Broglia. Check out Savor, their graphic novel from Dark Horse. And make sure you check out the movie Questions. Derrex Brady, Marc Etienne behind that one. Until next week, my friends.
It's not in the way you watch a zombie. It's not in the way you watch The Flash. It's not in the way you love Scotty Young Arts. It's not in the way you play Mario Kart. It's not in the way you look when you make Game of Thrones references. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio.
Thank you, Milky Way Galaxy. Good night.